Hello creatives, and welcome to episode 8 of the Tailored Wellness. Today, I'm going to talk to you about writer's block, creative burnout, and the emptiness it can create, the challenges it has caused me, and what helped me get out of it. I think that losing the desire to create can happen very quickly, especially with this pace and in these creative industries, where everything is always being. With deadlines, it was due yesterday, not today. We all know how that goes, and I think the last time it happened to me was recently, after the January 2024 show, when a bit disappointed, really. It didn't quite meet what I hoped for, with a few issues here and there. Things happened quickly, tight on cash flow. I thought to myself, the Olympics were coming to Paris. I had clients who hadn't paid their invoices, services rendered. And the idea was, really, it was going to be very complicated to manage, so a lot of stress, and the Olympics happening at the same time. So I decided to focus on the June season, and it was my best friend who gave me a wake-up call at one point, who said to me during the April review, "Stephen, you've got the tingry. You're really not in sync. You're doing everything, but you're doing too much." And the issue with doing everything and doing too much is that you often end up burning out. It's as if, instead of taking the time to look at what's there, we just rush through things. And honestly, I got lost. It's the first time. And I think the last time before that was mainly in 2023. I can't remember why anymore. All I remember is that I was in Korea to do a showroom in Seoul. And I had this thing of, I was at the end of my tether, really. Yes, I remember why now. I'd had an order cancelled on me by Essence. So, it was a bit complicated. Back to reality. It was mainly full of questions about how the business would keep growing and how the brand would keep evolving. So, I remember being at the hotel in Seoul, thinking to myself, yeah, okay, things aren't great, I don't feel like it anymore, I'm fed up, I'm tired. It was really just a general feeling of being completely fed up with it all. But at the same time, I was still carrying on, pushing things forward, because I was bold enough to do a showroom. So, I went to see some shops, I went out to meet people. So, it was really revitalizing. My body didn't let me down at that point. It was really more of a mental thing. I was kind of in a constant fog. And I started following the advice from a book, which I'll tell you about later. Little teaser, here it is. Artist on the Table. I swore by this book for a full 2.5 years afterwards, right up until about 6 months ago. It's pretty cool. What's tricky as a creative is that it's a real need. There's really this urge to always do the thing that's on your mind, but sometimes you just don't have the means, whether that's mentally or materially. And it's about being able to swear, 1, 2, 3, sorry, manage those frustrations. But thank you. Also, finding the right people to support you. Another challenge I faced was, well, long before that, when I was in London, and because in the episode where I talked about my mental health, which had taken a real hit about 10 years ago, I had lost all creativity. My body had stayed stuck in survival mode. I don't know if you know this, but basically, we have a system in the body, the nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic. So, one is for relaxation, which works normally, and the other is for survival. So, it's in fight or flight, as we say in English, or in freeze mode. That is, we either freeze or we fight. And so, your whole body and all your body's resources are ready to fight and to be completely in action. Except that when you're supposed to be creative, it's more about the system that puts you into relaxation and calm, being able to come up with ideas, think things through, and be in the best possible state for it. And actually, I had stayed a bit stuck in that survival mode. So, a body in survival, is a mind in survival, not a creative mind. It's a bit black and white, what I'm saying, but the idea is that, actually, there can be nuances, but overall, 90% of the time, you're in survival mode, so in fight mode, and therefore not creative. And as a little anecdote, what did I do at the time to get back to that creativity and relieve that mental stress? I went to see a shaman. I went to see a shaman in London who used singing to, how can I put it? Cleanse the energy a bit, the aura, whatever you want to call it. And it was 3 hours where I was sitting on a chair, eyes closed, and she would go into a trance to see everything that was there, and I remember that for the month that followed, I cried every day. It was like proper tears every day, without really understanding why. And the second session, 2 months later, was the same. And what's really funny, so, that was when I started my master's degree. So, in London, I managed to find that creativity again quite quickly. I spent a lot of time in libraries, reading and exploring fashion magazines, photography, creative and visual things, especially things that nourish me. And then I thought to myself, okay, it can come back. It was really the first time, I think, that I truly felt creativity could fade away. But it's about understanding the mechanism behind it, purely physiological, and how you get it back. I know that now, today, when there's a bit of a slump. A little time in nature, in the forest, really, you just end up observing calm things. It's a bit like rediscovering the very essence of being human in a natural state, coming back to yourself and aligning in a pure and simple way. So it might sound a bit cliché, but I know it works wonders. For some, it's the mountains, for others, it's the forest, or the sea, whatever you like. Find your own Madeleine de Proust to bring you back and create those moments. I have plants at home for a good reason. I should put one in my studio, note to self. Another situation is when the desire to create becomes pressure. Not creating out of desire, but creating because I have to. And here, I'm really talking about the fashion industry system in general, where you have to churn out collections every 6 months, or even every 3 months. It's a frantic pace, and it's like, well, here I am, not feeling inspired. I have no ideas for my collection. What do I do? How do I go about it? And actually, there have been times when I've forced things, and then realized just afterwards, oh, damn, maybe I shouldn't have done that. I wasn't prepared enough. I wanted to rush too much, to be too caught up in the rush, and it really wasn't what I should have done at all. That's a problem too. And I think sometimes, the worst thing you can do is keep digging through the pile without thinking, and then completely crash. And that's when burnout just becomes burn. Just ashes, that's it. It's really not pleasant at all. Because you need to know that when your body and your brain go through burnout, your brain chemistry changes and it can end up in depression, anxiety disorders, and other psychological issues. I really wouldn't recommend it. Have people around you who will give you a wake-up call, an alarm bell or a list, a checklist. I don't know, you do this every month, every 2 or 3 months. Am I doing well? What are the criteria? Are we eating and sleeping well? I eat well. I exercise. Am I smiling? Are my emotions on edge? Am I fasting, etc.? It's important. It might seem silly, but it's a useful tool to just have a checklist. Something somewhere that tells me, that's not me, that's me. That's me when I'm normal. That's me when I'm more tense, and knowing when to rest. It's important. The blank page, to come back to this idea, to the title of this episode, it's the fear of not having any ideas. Sometimes, when I'm in this state of being blocked, I tell myself that I must have the fear of the blank page. So maybe the subject itself, the fear of the blank page, can be the subject itself to counter the blank page. I try, a bit like that, to trick my brain a little so I can bounce back on. Sometimes, not facing the camera and telling myself I forgot what to say, it's not a big deal. A few words and we get back on topic and move on with the blank page. Often, it's there from unconscious fear. And that, I'll talk about in another episode. Or because we're in a creative phase, tense, in a creative block, there might be other ideas. For me, what really helped was this book called The Artist's Way. This isn't sponsored content, it's just a tool I came across on TikTok. I scroll through TikTok like a Gen Z. They call me Zillignor, and not for nothing. I really liked this book, which is written by Julia Cameron. And it's a bit about how, for those who aren't creative by profession or by nature, to understand that everyone is creative, that we all have creative things within us, even if you're an accountant or, I don't know, any job that doesn't seem creative. Creativity is the brain's ability to find solutions to problems. And so, it can be visual, it can be mechanical, physical, whatever you like. There are loads of ways to be creative. First thing, and the theory of this book, is that creativity is our inner child. For those who aren't too sure about the concept of the inner child, it's a bit like the mini-you. It's the little you that you were as a child, who is still alive inside you and is always there. If you were lucky enough to be able to grow up in an environment that allowed you to express yourself fully. Life has run you over, you've been steamrolled by your parents, people at school, teachers, in short, all the outside influences have, well, sort of locked that part of you away. And often, it just wants to be awakened, and it's about how to nurture this inner child. And the first thing Julia Cameron advises you to do in this book is to write 3 pages every morning. So, at first, I thought, oh bloody hell, 3 pages, me, writing and all that, can't be bothered. But actually, no, it's in the morning, so I'd get up, have my breakfast, right next to me, my pen, and it's just, okay, what's going through my head? Everything. You write everything down. The support, the nice weather, the stress of the moment, what I'm going to do tomorrow, what I'm going to eat, and so on. Something I'm happy about, not happy about, stress, the news, whatever, just empty your head. Because it then allows you to arrive at work in a state of, I'm settled, and day by day, you'll write 3 pages. Sometimes it'll only be 2, sometimes more, sometimes less, and so on. You'll notice ideas popping up or things that keep repeating themselves. And once again, as I mentioned in this episode, anything that repeats itself either belongs to you or is important. And in fact, at some point, you'll need to highlight all these recurring ideas. And what I suggested at one point is that they prompt you with questions like, if you had no financial constraints right now, what would you do? What is your mission? What is calling you? And sometimes we might say, yes, actually, if I had everything I could, I would do that. Okay, today, you don't have the finances to do it, but what small step can you take to move towards that goal? And then, as a result, you become much more aligned with yourself and you start to find, as a result, these ideas, these creations, and so on. The second thing she recommends doing is the artist dates. The artist date is a date with your own inner artist. You take yourself to do things that nourish you. When you're busy, running on the treadmill with your head down, you forget to do things you enjoy. You might even forget what you enjoy. That happens to me. I'll work like crazy on the collection for 3 months. Then the collection ends, Fashion Week, and I'm just there. What do I do? That's it. It's easy to forget, but important to rediscover. It could be anything. The first time I wanted to do that, I thought, I'll buy tickets and go to the Paris Aquarium. Why the Paris Aquarium? Because I love water. I liked being as if under the ocean, and it just changed me. The ideas. Just a side note, don't go when there are loads of children screaming everywhere. It wasn't pleasant, really not pleasant at all, but still, it reminded me a bit of my own childhood, in a way. Sometimes I would just go out to the cinema, something I do regularly as well, going to the cinema on my own. There are times when my mind is thinking about something other than the film, so I end up thinking about work stuff during the movie. And there you go. It's a bit like a game of mental ping pong. I can't even remember everything I've done. When I was in Korea, I actually started reading this book. I told myself, well, today, I'm going to get a massage. Today, I'm going to discover this place. It's easier when you're on holiday, but the most important thing is to do it when you're at work. During the week, saying, on this day, I'm going to do, I don't know, an activity, pottery, sticking my fingers in the clay, I love it, or whatever it might be. Sometimes it's just something simple like going to the bakery and buying the best custard tart you can eat. I love custard tarts and millefeuille. If you ever want to give me a little present, that's it. You treat yourself to something once a week that nourishes you from the inside, or quite literally, your stomach. But there you go. It's all about the simple things. But things that help you recenter yourself. And then, the book, well, it's about 12 weeks of protocols on how to rediscover your creativity, what your blockages are, what you can do to. Basically, asking yourself the right questions to, okay, as I said earlier, without any constraints, what would you do today? What is the first small step you can take in that direction? How can you create time to do it and remove the cognitive biases that are holding you back from these things? Really, for 12 weeks, sometimes it's tough, and every week you have to do a checkup on where you are, what you've done, and what you've learned about yourself. And for me, it really allowed me to refocus throughout the summer of 2023. And I came back at the start of the new term feeling fresh, future-oriented, much less stressed, and telling myself, I'm safe in the present, I can keep creating. And I can move forward. Now, today, maybe I should do it again. Actually, I think summer would be more interesting for that. A little refresh is good. These are things you can forget quickly, but writing, I still have it and the tools. If I need them, I use them regularly. And I strongly recommend getting them for yourself. I've recommended them to several friends. They all loved it. I passed it on to other friends, who then told me that they'd been talking about it. So, I felt like the circle was complete, and that's my biggest piece of advice. There you go. It's about refocusing. Taking time for yourself, and there's a method to help you get aligned. And we've come to the end of this episode. Tell me, what are your routines or tips when you get stuck? And I'd be delighted to discuss this topic with you next time. Thank you.